Unfiltered, uncensored, and unapologetic. This is the Retail Warzone podcast.
Irish, are you peeking in on it?
Yeah, I am. I just did a lag test there. I just put the time in. We'll see how long it takes to.
So does everything appear to be working?
Yep, audio's good. What was the music at the start? That's different.
I don't remember. I have no idea. Like I said, I have not fired this computer up and all this nonsense in 8 months. You know, during that time we moved to a new place. My bedroom is chaos right now. I have cats locked out that are pissed off because they think that we're feeding the one cat that's always in the bedroom. It's nonsense, but it's up and running, so I can't really complain, and happy to be here. So, you know, I went back and looked. The last episode was 8 months ago, and I watched a little bit of it, and you know, I said February of this year. Well, it's February of this year, so I guess I'm a man of my word. I forgot that I even said that, so hey, bonus for me. This kind of a catch up. We're going to talk a little bit about what we're going to do in the future. You know, you guys have questions, comments, or whatnot, put them. We'll discuss whatever you want. This isn't really topical. This is more like a, hey guys, we're still alive. We're still doing this. We're, you know, like I put in one of the descriptions of the videos, we're kicking the tires and lighting the fires, and onward and upward, right? So just to get some stuff out of the way, like I was telling Irish before we went live. So here's what my plan is. We're going to have something that's called the Retail Warzone Trios or the Trifecta or whatnot. The bulk of the topical stuff is going to be audio only. It's easier to schedule. It doesn't take as much, you know, work on my end, setting up green screens and lights and all this other nonsense. And it's going to be myself, Irish, and Blame Tag. And this is something I've discussed with all three. I think we've got a day or two set up for the first week of March. What it does is allows us, we could have a conversation. We could wind up having like a 2-hour conversation broke into segments. And we've got 4 30-minute podcast episodes for 1 month. And historically speaking, when you look at everything the Retail Warzone has done, the audio side far surpasses what we do on YouTube. And I get that, you know, these are long form videos. People aren't going to sit and watch an hour-long video. I get it. And that's okay. I'm fine with that. But as far as the video side goes, I've pretty much decided today that what we'll see mostly on the YouTube, Twitch side is at least once a month, there'll be a retail therapy sessions. And that's going to be where, you know, it's not going to be topical. Everybody can jump in. You can vent, you can rant, you can ask questions. We can talk about stuff and just go with it. So there will be live streams, but probably once a month. The core of everything we do is going to be audio, and it's going to be wherever you listen to your regular podcast or whatnot. It's really interesting because, you know, I haven't really, you know, looked at what the Retail Warzone has done recently or anything like that. I did come across a website where we were like the number 12 retail podcast for 2025, which is interesting. And we were in there with all these business podcasts, and they took the time to pinpoint an episode they thought was good, which was the one about AI, which is pretty, and you know, pretty good because I think it's pretty relevant to everything that's going on currently. Blame Tag says, I'd watch an hour-long video if it was an entirely too nitpicky critique of a movie I hated. I'm sure you would. That sounds just like you. But that's kind of where we're at. And scheduling wise, like I said, the production wise, it's so much easier to do it that way and still have content out and still keep things going. We're planning on doing it. You know, I'm looking at doing it through Discord And there may be an opportunity at some point in time where we have a live conversation where you guys could, interact in Discord through a chat. Because the one thing that I will miss about that is the interaction, real-time questions and things like that. That's something that I really would like to have more of. And I had posted on Blue Sky and Twitter that I was quote unquote getting the band back together, but we still wanted to hear from you. The email address is thegenerationvoid@gmail.com. If you have questions, comments, concerns, topics, whatnot, email me. We'll discuss it. I don't want to do, a 2-hour long conversation with Blame Tag and Irish where we don't have some sort of input. So start sending me, or tagging me on Twitter or tagging me on Blue Sky or, message me on Facebook. I'm at all those places. And that's kind of where we're going. Now, as far as what's happened in this long period of time, I did do something that I thought I would swear off forever. Yes, I have keys. Now, I'm not a store manager yet. I don't know if that's something that I will wind up being at any point in time. But for now, I have keys. And, it's, face it, everything's expensive. Sometimes you have to jump through hoops to make money. And sometimes the keys are what gets you there. And I am not wealthy by any means. I live in a household where it takes every income, but it was more. And I will say on the record, I have a great store manager that I enjoy working for. It's Blame Tag's like, no, not the keys, man. What is it like? The Godfather, just when you think that you got out, they suck you back in. Is that maybe is that movie? I don't know, but it's okay. So, I mean, I am fortunate enough to be able to keep my hair. That could change at some time, but that's kind of what I've been doing. And we moved during the 8-month hiatus. So the complex we live in, one day we get a letter saying you got 60 days to get out because we just sold. And, we're like, whoa, wait a minute. And lo and behold, we had to re-sign a lease and whatnot. But we're still in the same place. We just moved to a different building. There's been a lot of guitar-oriented stuff going on in my absence. I built a guitar. If you follow me on social media, you've seen the Skull and Bones guitar. That's like my pride and joy. I've been working on that since August of last year and finally completed it. It was a guitar I saw when I was 16 years old. And, if you'd have told 16-year-old me that I'd have had that, at some point in time, I'd have told you were crazy because it's a guitar that costs thousands and thousands of dollars. Well, pre-tariffs, I was able to find a guitar body that had to carve. And, I had help from Hero. She is artistic. I am not. And she did all the detail work. If you go check my Twitter, check my Blue Sky, check my Facebook, you'll see this picture of this guitar that's a big skull. It is, probably one of my greatest accomplishments over the last couple of years. I'd enjoy it. Justin Forevan says, I'd work under your thumb. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, Irish, tell us a little bit what's been going on for you last 8 months.
Well, I've been trying to live the quiet life, I suppose. Not nearly as much has changed with me compared to yourself. I'm still in the same employment in the same house. It's much of the same. Things are still, everything's, gradually getting more and more expensive. The same for you over there, but work is largely the same. It's same. I don't know, like you were saying off stream. It's like the people change, the characters don't, kind of thing, or whatever way you put it.
Yep.
But been doing okay. I've been trying to keep my mind occupied with healthy distractions. As it was, I started an online degree to try and keep myself away from other vices, I suppose. And I swore I wasn't going to do something work related, so it was kind of nice to do one that wasn't that couldn't be used in work, I suppose.
Right.
But yeah, so I did that in animation. I finished that in a couple of about just before Christmas, and I enjoyed it. It was just something a bit like this, something different, so kind of cathartic, rather than the way I used to be, which was just 100% work. Just
Right.
put all my energies into. I didn't have enough extracurriculars for myself. So I'm trying to be more disciplined in keeping the work-life balance, which is kind of, what brought me to you guys in the first place. So,
Right. Right.
But I've no major kind of life changes, to be honest with you. I've been keeping in touch with Blame Tag, but on about a weekly basis. Try to keep that zoo together on Reddit.
Yeah.
But like that. Apart from that, honestly, it's been pretty. I've missed this, I have to say. It was kind of, it became part of a routine there, and it was kind of nice. I totally understand why you took the hiatus. It was the right thing to do. But it's nice. I'm happy to see that the chats, it's more lively than it's been in a couple of episodes in the past. There's actually a few people here.
Exactly, on very short notice. Forgive me because I don't know what's going on. I'm looking at, I have this little light down in the bottom corner of my screen that shows like green, orange, red, how the stream's operating. So there it appears to be some network issues. There may be some lagging, but like everything else we've ever done, the audio of this will go up very, very shortly. I'm going to put this up, and I don't know if it's going to show with the camera, but this is the guitar I was talking about. I don't know if you can see that. That was a lot of work. I got more money in tools than I do in putting the guitar together, but I learned a lot, and that's cool doing stuff like that. It's kind of like Irish doing the animation. You learn stuff. Now, looking at the chat, Tammy says a lot has changed since you were last on here with me. Abraham Mel says working fine for me. Justin Frev, this is Erica. Always good to see you. Even though you're bouncing between profiles. Blame Tag says I won't talk shit. I recently went for a promotion myself. Oh, so you did not get it. I haven't followed up with you on that. That sucks. Are you okay about it? But yeah, I mean, like tonight's going to be very lighthearted. I mean, if there's stuff y'all want to talk about, we can. We'll run about an hour, and I'll chop this up and put it up, and we'll slowly get back at it. Tammy says I've missed this too. I quit my full-time job in August and went back to my grocery store job at a different store, but I'm finally part-time and I'm no longer working at the service desk. Oh, well, if that makes you happy and you enjoy that, that's great. That's the interesting thing. I mean, I'm in grocery as well. And, I would say, this is somewhere I've worked. This is my third time working there. I mean, it was my first job. I've said this to some people. I'm the only person in the building to say I've ever worked. I've worked for every single store manager that's ever been at that location. I'm the only one that can say that. I mean, that's aging me, because that journey started way back in 1988. But, it's been good. And, there's, with some people, there's a misconception of what my skill set may be, and that's fine. I mean, it's not necessary for everybody to know everything about me. It's not necessary for everybody to know what I can do. When the time comes that I need to do things, I'll do them. And the wage comes that validates me doing those things, I'll do those things. But I'm very respectful, and I'll try to sit back and I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes, and I'm letting them do their thing and, blossom and spread their wings and all this other stuff, and watching, thinking, man, I remember being back there all those years ago. Y'all have no idea what you're doing, but that's okay. You'll learn. We all do. Experience is the greatest teacher, as well as adversity. And only certain people survive and certain people don't. I've always said that it takes a certain kind of person to survive these kind of businesses. And I mean that. Some people will, some people won't. Some people will dig their heels in and do the best they can do. But as soon as they see the next shiny thing out there, they're going to leave. And, some people just aren't cut out for it. And I think the one lesson I've learned through everything I've done and my current job, which I really enjoy, a point that it really drives home is that if you're that miserable, you need to go. I'm not miserable in my job. For the most part, I enjoy everybody I work with. Sure, there's always going to be people that don't like you. I get that. And that's fine. You come to me and say you don't like me. All right, cool. I'll still sleep tonight. It's all right. But, the misery part of it, I think, coming through, I ran, low volume, middle volume, high volume retail stores, roughly almost 30 years. So I've seen it all, and I get it. I get being miserable, but I'm able to reflect and be like, man, I wish somebody would have told me back then, if you're that miserable, just go, because you're not doing anybody any good, and you're definitely not doing yourself any good. And this has been a reinforcement of that for me. I hate that people are unhappy. I hate that people hate where they're working, and that's a them problem. It's not a company problem. These companies, no matter where we've ever worked, they're going to be here. They were here before we started, and they'll be here long after we're gone. But you need to do what's best for you, mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever it is. Learn when to say, I got to go. And that's a flaw for all of us, because we get blinded by the money, the schedule, the things that we're able to do. And I get that. I understand. But I wish and that comes with time. I see it, and I try to give grace to people because I have seen it for so long. I give grace to people because of their age. I give grace to people, their inexperience and whatnot. And I just try to kind of sit back, and they've all got to find their own way. But that's something that this job has reinforced, for me. It's something that I dealt with my entire career, watching people be miserable and staying when they could do something else better with their life, Let's see what's going on here. Blame Tech says, yeah, I'm fine. Apparently I was a top contender or some shit. There was a hint that something better suited to my skill set might open soon, but I'm not going to hold my breath on it. Justice Trevor and Erica, it's a need to know basis, and some don't need to know. That's correct. Oh my God, that is so correct. Tammy also said, as long as you have someone who appreciates you and doesn't talk about you behind your back, you will be okay. Correct. Welcome, Mad Dog. Good to see you. Mad Dog, a lot's happened in 8 months. Where are you living now? Some crazy shit right there.
Go back to the OGs.
Yeah, Irish. What you got?
Well, I'm intrigued actually with your kind of story there, because you're, I think, in a pretty unique position where, you started in a building in 1988, and you've lived an entire retail life, and you come right back around. And I'm curious, like you have the opportunity to kind of almost like to calibrate what it was like back then, what it's like now. Like, has the job gotten better, worse, stayed the same? What's the vibe like in the store? Because that's a long time in, like, you've seen an entire history of retail in that store. Was the work-life balance better back in the day? Is it rose-tinted glasses that we're looking at, or like our customers just that kind of thing? It's very few people that I know would be able to go back to the original place where they started and see the differences. Like, I'm just kind of intrigued by that.
Well, you're right. It is, it's very bizarre. You know, here I am, an 18-year-old kid, you know, being a bag boy, or, you know, eventually I'll wind up on the stock crew. And imagine how much of a mind trip it is, you know, people you saw in 1988 shopping, and in 2025, you see those same people.
That's crazy.
And it is crazy. I mean, and
I have nothing like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. You know, I see customers every single day that I saw when I was a kid. You know, they still live here and they still shop there and whatnot. And you know, I've even told my boss, you know, I have an appreciation for what I do that far surpasses anything else I've done, because I have an appreciation for the fact that, you know, we talked about this with the AI stuff a little bit. Look, I'm telling you guys, I mean, I'm just going to be really honest with you, and I'm not trying to be a doomsayer or whatnot, but, you know, and we'll get into some of this when we do the regular topical episodes. You look at the retail closures, you look at all the stuff that's going on. I'm telling you right now, the most secure business, if you want to stay in this field, is grocery, because everybody's got to eat, right? I mean, grocery stores aren't going anywhere. Make sure you find one that's good to you. And like I said, there's, you know, I enjoy my job. I mean, I really do. I mean, I don't dread coming to work, and it is very interesting, you know, in the 3 times I've been there, what I've done. And, you know, technologies, advanced things. I mean, I'm one of these people that can say I worked at a place. I was there the day they went from pricing every piece of merchandise to scanning barcodes.
Shit, man, that's crazy.
I was there that day. I was a bag boy that day. We didn't know what was going to go on. I mean, and this is a company, when I worked there in 1988, if you were a smoker, you could smoke in the store. I mean, the terrazzo floors and the tile had burn marks everywhere. I mean, it was such a different world back then. And it is amazing to be able to go back at my age and at this point in my career and see a lot of people that were shopping there back when it was like that. I mean, there are literally customers that come in every week that came in back then when I was a stalker, wearing a baseball cap and a tie, smoking while I'm stocking like marshmallows.
That's insane. Like, is it possible for you to like gauge, like, you know, was it more stressful back then? You obviously had a different role back then, like, but like, what was the vibe like? You know, was it you know, in retail?
Well, vibe wise, you know, that was you can't smoke in the supermarket anymore because of woke. No, you can't smoke in the supermarket anymore because it's bad for you. But anyway, and plus it costs a lot to keep stripping and waxing those floors. It's you know, society's changed. You know, there was a point in time back in those days, like around 80, you know, well, up until, yes, probably early 90s, where if you were a bag boy, you know, you got tips. You know, you bagged somebody's groceries, you took them out of their car, and some nice little old lady handed you like 50 cents or $1 or whatnot for taking groceries out. And then these companies decided, well, you can't have tips anymore. You know, it's not specific to where I work. All of the companies did the same thing, but it was a culture. I mean, and that's just what it was. It was like, respect to you for providing a service. Here, let me give you a little something. And I remember, I mean, I'm not lying, you know, 88, 89, if I was a bag boy on a weekend, I mean, I had 2 pockets, you know, each side, each leg bulging with quarters. I mean, there were Saturdays that I'd leave like $120 worth of tips. Like, no joke. You know, and $120 in 1988, that went a long way, man. But, the culture's changed. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, we still have customers that are old school that will slide something to a bag boy or whatnot. And that happens in any, anywhere. But it's not as prevalent. I will say the biggest thing that I've noticed is, and when you're dealing with people that you saw 20, 30 years ago, they're just as shocked as everybody else that, how expensive everything is. But they're religious. I mean, they come in and they're there. I mean, it's so amazing to me because there's a guy that I worked with back in 88, 89, 90, that is a manager at another chain that I'll talk to from time to time and say, hey, guess who I saw? I saw so-and-so who Stalker X had a crush on, or it's just the weirdest stuff, man. It's like time travel, to be honest with you. And, but as far as how it's changed, I will say, the first 4 to 6 years I worked for that company, it was harder. The standards were higher. They really were. I mean, if you were a stalker and you were responsible for a set of aisles, you stressed when you went on vacation because somebody was going to go behind you and see if you were doing what you were supposed to do. Today, not so much. But it also comes down to your leadership. And like I said, I have a great store manager that I work for that I respect greatly. He has a really good philosophy. Don't go looking for problems. Problems are going to find you no matter what. Don't go looking for some. And I think that's a great way to be. He wants everybody to be happy with what they do. He also understands that, you got different people in the building and not everybody's going to like everybody and whatnot. And he tries to keep the peace as best as he can. And, but if a situation arises that needs some attention, he going to handle it. He going to handle it well. And, so from looking back at what I did the first time around to now, I mean, the job itself's fine. Society's changed. It's not as much about how the company's changed. The companies have to adapt to how society changes. It's not a company saying we're going to have this policy and this policy because we just decide to. No, you change policy based on what consumer sentiment is. And that's a lot of what's been going on. Tammy says, I've never heard of people being able to smoke in e-store. Oh, yes, we did. And a lot. Labor Mail says, I highly recommend On the Clock by Emily Gundelsberger. She talks about how computers made a lot of this work harder because they can track you so carefully with no extra effort. True. Erica says 80s was prime time for working in grocery retail. It was considered a good paying job with good benefits. You could buy a house, raise your kids, and have a good retirement. That's true. And that's when skill and ability was still a thing. 100%. Blame Tag says, I don't like going on vacation because that's when they rearrange my department in what I'd call a shitty manner. And Blame Tag also says, Mel, I always wanted to get a recommended reading list together for retail workers. That's probably a good idea. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing to see. I'm not, there trying to set the world on fire. When my time comes, if I have the opportunity to move up and at that point in time, that's something I choose to do. Okay, fine. I'll do it. I'm perfectly fine watching people ahead of me do whatever it is they do, and for good or bad. And there's, I mean, it's like any other business, man. You go work in some of these stores, you see stuff and you scratch your head and you're like, wow, that's a mistake. Or, and like I said, I've gotten better at age, giving grace to people because I see a lot of stuff with like young managers still. and I'm not mad at them. I'm really not, because I did it too. I mean, you're in your mid 20s or whatnot, and you're in a position of power and you're like, oh, I'm going to change the world and the iron fist and this and that. We all did it, man. I'm not innocent here. And so even though it drives you crazy, you see it going on, you're like, oh, well, They're going to learn eventually. If they stay in this business long enough, eventually they're going to figure out you get more flies with honey than you do vinegar. And when you figure that out, that's when your stores really run the best. You can't be mad at everybody all the time, but I can't fault them because I did it too,
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. It's just a very unique perspective that you have. I doubt many people would be able to, to be able to look to be working in a place that they knew what it was like way back then. But it's that's pretty cool. I'm just wondering, like, what the typical kind of style of management was back then, how it has changed, or
okay. Well, I can give you a real quick answer on that one. Management in '88, my first run there was do what I say or get fired. I mean, it was your work and your work ethic propelled you. If you were lazy and you showed any signs of not wanting to do what needed to be done, it was cutthroat. I mean, back then, I mean, you're talking like old school, former military. Yeah, I mean, it was, if you had it in you and you had the fortitude, or you were raised a certain way where your work mattered, you could succeed. But no bullshit would pass. I mean, it was like the wild, wild west. There was no human resources. Yeah, you crossed the wrong store manager and you did the wrong thing, you're gone. That's the difference. I mean, it was, and in hindsight, you may say, well, maybe they were a little too harsh. No, they were brought up a certain way. You need certain things to make the business run right. And I'm not necessarily sure they weren't wrong.
What was company loyalty a thing back then? More than it is now?
No, it wasn't. It was, you had a job, and the entire environment was different. I mean, in 1988, I'm 18 years old, and I grew up in a family that, came up through the 50s and whatnot. And it was very much, like a Happy Days TV show lesson. You succeed by the work that you do and the integrity that you have. And that was it. That was it. If you had integrity and a great work ethic, you could succeed. If you didn't have those two things, you're fucked. You're out.
It's just in my experience, especially in big box, the better you are at your job, you just get more work now. It's not really you're making up for the slack in others and stuff like that. No, look, maybe that was always there, but it just seems to be more like you were saying, it was cutthroat. Like now, it's not so much that, like, there's a lot of coasters that just clock in, clock out, do the bare minimum, and are generally just kind of miserable enough. But then the really good employees, that they tend to get taken advantage of then by management.
Yeah,
consciously or unconsciously.
I will say Mad Dog pretty much summed it up pretty well. She said management was about the business. Companies being employee-centric wasn't a thing. Employees belong to the company, and you better live up to the expectations. Yes, that is true. And I will tell you that financially, that those companies did far better than they are now. I'm not saying that that's the right way to go, but from a business standpoint, it worked, because once we got away from that, look what's happened. I mean, look what's happened. And we'll get into this when Blaine Tag and Irish and I sit down and have a conversation. We're going to talk about the state of the industry. When you look at the amount of people that are closing and things that went down in the past 8 months, it's insane. I do believe there is a correlation between company success and what's the best way to put this? I don't know. When you start catering to everybody, company success comes down to your bottom line. It comes down to your profit and your loss. It comes down to how much money you got coming in versus how much money you going out. And that's the way a business should run. Okay. If I start a business today, or if Irish starts a business today, it becomes how much do we have coming in? How much do we have coming out? Can we afford to do what we're doing and keep it moving? When you start catering to emotion, all these different things that can get in the weeds and get in the way, your business isn't effective. And I guess the best way to look at it is Irish, going back to when I was working there in 1988, it was very much like military school. And I'm not so sure that wasn't the right way to go. I mean, the business was successful. Standards were met. People made friends. People worked hard. It's just like the military. You get some guys that enlist, they're never going to make it. I think that these days we have far more people getting into the ranks that aren't going to make it long term. And I think that's to a detriment to the business.
Well, and it is, and I forgive me, I forget who said it earlier on in the chat, but in the 80s and 90s, I think you could raise a family on a retail income,
right?
That was true for a lot of jobs too. It's just there's unfortunately now, with the way that wages have been squeezed, and most households would need a dual income just to scrape by.
Well, I know we do, so yeah. You're right.
Yeah, it's a funny, groceries a little more resilient to this type of thing, because a lot of the other side of retail has been decimated,
Yes,
and we've lost some, we've gotten more choice now, but it's at the cost of kind of some experiences. The kind of the most obvious one everyone will be familiar with is the kind of Blockbuster choice. There was an experience going into a video rental store, and you could smell a popcorn, and you pick something out, and you had to return it within a couple of days, or you get a fine and stuff. There was an experience there that's just not the same when you could just stream everything. Yes, you have a lot more choice, but that there was something special about those type of things. And a lot of clothing retail and bricks and mortar retail that the option is there for online are closing down, but you are missing out on those things. So grocery is a little more resilient, because I don't think anyone would really, you technically can buy your groceries online, but it's people tend to pretend, they tend to want to actually go in and pick them out,
Right. Well, I think the one thing that's missing today that during the heyday of business, strictness. I mean, I grew up and came up in this business when everything was extremely uber strict. And so, I mean, I'm a product of my environment, and there's things I see, I'm like, oh my God, that would never fly. It's such and such. It's just a difference in the times. And, when I look at all the businesses out there that are failing, I mean, it really comes down to convenience. If anybody, when you started reading about Amazon, when it first started up, if you looked at Amazon and thought it was going to be nothing as a business owner, shame on you, because there's a large amount of people out there that are tired of dealing with subpar service because of how the industry has changed and how companies have changed, how they evaluate talent, because that strictness isn't there anymore to be, the customer expects 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, well, you only got one, but we'll keep you. It's okay. We need a body. Whereas you go to Amazon, you order what you want, you get it the next day. And that is something that is frightening, because brick and mortar's in a lot of trouble. Mm-hmm. I think, clothing stores will be okay for the most part, because there's still a large amount of people that want to go into a building and try on their clothes. But Grocery business is stable because everybody needs to eat. And to your point, you might not want to order online, 2 pounds of hamburger meat because you don't trust what's going on. But your hard lines and like the Walmarts and the Big Lots and all these other businesses, they're in trouble. Now you have to remember the concept of business is profit. So if you're a company that has an online storefront that makes more profit than your brick and mortar because you're paying rent on all these buildings, why wouldn't you close the brick and mortar? And there's people, when Amazon first started, that talked a bunch of nonsense. Oh, it's not going to hurt nothing. Blah, blah, blah. No. Oh, it is. Because Sally Joe Homemaker sometimes is already pissed off at the local grocery store she shops at. And she's like, well, I can just get it delivered to my door. And that's what's going on. And, when you look at the state of business, mass goods, hard lines, furniture, desk chairs, all the stuff that you used to go to Walmart for, just to grab all of a sudden, cleaning supply. I mean, anything that's not perishable, basically, you can get online. And I said this when we had the AI video, grocery is going to become a demanding job. It's going to be the job where people can go. And, it's sad because that's where we're headed. And I see it, to your point, the business doesn't change because I'm seeing people shop in this store I work at that were shopping there when I was 18. So they're not going anywhere. But are they going to Walmart or are they ordering stuff from Amazon? And that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's just there's going to be a lot of change, but there's already been a lot of change, especially since COVID in the kind of hard lines, But it's just the future of retail. It used to be more in the town center, the city centers type of thing. That it's mostly anywhere that they're moving out to the outskirts and the kind of the suburban areas. More so now because it's just too expensive to run stores in city centers now. It's right. Just it's just for whatever reason, like there's the one thing that hasn't really been reflected in reality is the cost of or the price that people expect to pay for rent. I mean, in the city center is just not worth it for most businesses now. They would be better off on the outskirts, and kind of some, at least here, a lot of the town centers are kind of just becoming voids. There's a lot of vacancies because landlords or companies or whoever own these places are still they still think it's the fucking 90s, like where you can get 30-40% of the revenue in rent. It's just not possible now.
Well, I mean, and I'm looking at the chat, and there's a lot about like curbside pickup. That's a system that's fairly new for a lot of companies. They're going to get it ironed out. They're going to figure it out eventually. You're going to have ups and downs with it, but the convenience of sitting at your desk and ordering your groceries for the week and pulling up to a parking spot and somebody bring them out to you, it's done. That's great. Curbside's going to be a big deal. It comes down to, does the company have the technology to appropriately make sure that runs in a streamlined fashion? If they do, they're going to win. You're going to have grocery stores competing with each other on who has the better curbside. And, but that's convenient. And as curbside orders go up, the companies are going to be like, oh, well, our curbside's grown. We need to invest in this, instead of wondering why people won't come in your store. And they're not going to. They're going to invest where the profit's at and the money's at. And if curbside's higher than inside, they're going to give more hours to that. And then you're going to have your traditional people that shop, and they're coming to the store, and they're going to be mad because there's not enough people. And it's a bad thing. I think, from a grocery standpoint, you need to prepare for an onslaught of curbside while maintaining a full staff to bag and ring customers out. That's where this is going. It's going to be a 50-50 split at some point. And at some point, my prediction is in the near future, if you're a traditional grocery store and things are being manned correctly and hours are allotted correctly, there's going to come a day where curbside outpaces in-store purchases, because the people that are doing the in-store purchases, and this sounds morbid, they're going to die. I mean, it's over. We have a lot of people out there that understand technology and the convenience of it. Eventually, that's going to outweigh having cashiers. So are you prepared for it? Are you preparing for it? Chances are probably not, but that's what's going to happen. There's going to come a time where cashiers, you may need 10 on a Saturday. All of a sudden, you might need 3. And all those people oh, go ahead.
I'm just saying, I can see a lot of companies actually wanting that as well, though, because, they don't have to go with the expense of having, large shoppable areas where that's well lit and aesthetically pleasing. It's much easier to run a warehouse where everything's stacked. It's strange too. It's come a little bit full circle in a way, because grocery stores originally, you'd walk up, ask for your stuff, and they'd bring it out to you. It's back before the suburban sprawl back in the 30s and 40s.
Imagine this, and I just had this thought, and it's probably genius, and somebody's probably going to steal it. But imagine operating a grocer, okay? That basically you're a warehouse. You don't get to go in and shop, and everything you sell is curbside. So you have a crew of people that are picking these orders every single day and bringing them to your car. You don't have to go in. You don't have to check out. That's the entire business model. The company that does that, I'm telling you right now, wins.
I think one of the bigger box stores are probably going to try that in a concept store. They're going to open up a store that's just basically a drive-through.
Right.
I mean, I actually don't know when the first drive-through when that was, but I mean, that must have been a weird sales pitch. You're going to hand someone food in their car,
Right.
But someone had to pitch it first and try it out, and then it became very convenient for a lot of people. I don't know. Someone's going to do it. You just need. It's not going to be in the city centers though. That will require too much fucking space.
Well, I mean, I believe we're going to come a time where you're going to have local grocers, and then you're going to have just pickup spots. And see, here's the thing. The company that decides that we're just going to do curbside can alter prices because they're not paying payroll for baggers, cashiers, etc.
Yep.
And that's probably coming sooner rather than later. And, from a business standpoint, that makes the most sense. You have a fully functional grocery store, basically, that is not open to the public, that you employ just people to shop. That's it. I mean, you're eliminating, cashiers, you're eliminating bag boys. I mean, your payroll cost goes bare bones, and you're making the same money as the grocery store down the road that has all those things.
And who's very good at everything you just described there? Amazon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So don't be surprised if all of a sudden there's Amazon grocery stores where you don't go in, you just pull up and get your stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at. But all right, we are at 7:53. We're about to hit an hour. It's great to see everybody this evening. So I've said what we're doing in the future. Once again, I would like to reemphasize, if you have topic suggestions or comments or questions, please email thegenerationvoid@gmail.com, and we will, get them. And as we do this thing going forward, we will respond. It's great to see all of you this evening. I know it's been a long time. I mean, it's been 8 months. Elections are over. The rules still apply, just to let everybody know. No politics, no religion. We're not dealing with that bullshit. I know there's still a lot of discourse out there, but y'all handle it outside of here. We're not dealing with it here. I think we've got a day set up for Irish and Blame Tag and I to hook up the first week of March. So if you have questions or comments, please send them in so we can address those when we do that. That conversation will be available everywhere that we put our podcast. Tonight's episode will be up. I'm not so sure I'll have it done tonight, but it'll be up in the next few days to check out and whatnot. Blame Tag says R.I.P. to Hooters, right? I have a friend of mine that goes there a lot, and he hasn't responded yet. I posted like an article. I'm like, hey, dude, are you okay? Because Twin Peaks are taking their business. But anyway, the first episode with Blame Tag and Irish, we're probably going to get into like retail closures and things like that. There's been a lot go on the last 8 months. One thing I do want to say too is, and I want to warn everybody, my voice is going in and out. This has been a terrible winter. My entire family's been sick. We've been sick since Thanksgiving, basically, and we have not been able to shake everything completely. I'm a cold weather guy. I love winter and fall. This is the first time I'm like, can the sun please come out and get all this stuff gone? So you got to bear with me a little bit. There's going to be times where my voice sounds like a chainsaw. I can't shake this congestion. If any of you are a medical professional and can tell me something that I don't have to go to a doctor to get rid of this congestion every night that sits in my lungs, I'd appreciate it. That'd be great. I love you all. So having said that, before we sign off, Irish, what you got?
It's great to be back. I hope that it's been fantastic to see how many people have actually showed up at short notice. That there's obviously still a loyal community here, so that's wonderful to see. It's nice to be back on. It's cathartic, and hopefully the plans that you have work seamlessly. The audio has always been the kind of the better performer, but like that, we can do this once a month or something like that.
Correct. So we'll be seeing you guys. This isn't it. So when you see me post, hey, there's a retail therapy session, get your notes in line, stuff you want to talk about, and we'll go from there. And I haven't said tonight, but yes, we're still sponsored by the Serving Times. So make sure you check that out. The link's in the description. Having said that, it's great to have seen all of you tonight. It's been a long time. And I'm back. I'm ready to go. It's going to be a little bit different, but 2025 is here. Let's go make a mess or such.